You can measure the size of an elephant. You can clock the speed of a cheetah, but you can't quantify the heart of a kings, queens, and in-betweens. Welcome to Dr. Boxing Talk. Stream starts now.
The champ is here! 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 The champ is here!
If I tell you I'm good, probably you will say I'm boasting. If I tell you I'm no good, you know one line.
Yo, what it do, man? What it do, man? Good, great, grand evening to y'all. I had to think about it for a little bit. Good, great, grand evening to y'all, man. Y'all know what it is, man. Brethren and sisters, boys and girls, prince and princesses, mi hermanos, mi hermanas, ladies and lads, kings and queens. Y'all know what time it is. The doctor's in the house. We're a little bit late, we start at 7, but it's 8, about an hour late, but it was storming, you know what I'm saying? So storming and lightning and stuff like that, man. I wasn't even sure if my power was gonna hold up, so I didn't want to start the stream and it cut off, but it quieted down outside. Let me check out the window. Yeah, it's done now, so thank God for that. But I didn't want to be on and then the power cut off, damage my computer or anything like that, man. I got surge protectors and all that good stuff, but just in case, man, I don't like to, you know what I'm saying? The best cure is prevention. So I just try to do my part. You feel me? That's why I'll be a little late, but we are here. Thank God for that, man. So let's get right to it, man. Before we do, we got to say our prayers as always. That's how we start off the stream. So let's get right to our tradition. Dr. Boxing Talk tradition, man. So join me and bow your heads. Let's get it. Thank you, Lord, for this wonderful night and leading us into this wonderful night. Hopefully we had a wonderful day, and if not, hopefully our day gets better. Lord, protect us from those that want to just do harm, those that want to do evil, those that don't have common sense to do the right thing, those that act, I don't know. I don't even know, but I've seen some videos that were disturbing, like a grown lady talking to a little child in the park, thank God for restraint, Lord. We want to thank you for restraint because I don't even think that people know the harm that they could do to themselves by acting out. You just never. So we just want to just ask you for a peace of mind. We want to ask you for restraint, and we want to also thank you for all the good people out there that help balance it out. So we ask that hopefully we could go forward in life as a good person, and just help bring light and peace and happiness to this world because it gets crazy. So we thank you for your blessings, Lord. Please continue to forgive us for our sins that we commit every day, and please just let us be strong. And I don't just be strong by fighting. I mean strong-willed, strong-minded, and strong in ourselves and secure, and not get caught up in nonsense that could be avoided. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen, 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 man. So there's a couple things to talk about, man. I went to thinking today, and I was like, man, this weekend was pretty good, right? I was like, man, a lot of times, there's I will always give my opinion, not a lot of time, all the time. I would always give my opinion on stuff. And I was like, a lot of times too, we tend to be critical of things. We tend to critique things instead of appreciating things. I feel like we do a pretty good job over here, giving people their credit and appreciating boxing and uplifting the sport. But then sometimes we get caught up in it too, because there's a lot of nonsense out there in the boxing world, man. A lot of negativity. But today I was thinking, I was like, man, I know we focus on Naoya Inoue because he's a popular guy, right? Top 3 pound for pound, 1, 2, or 3 in my personal opinion. Him, Usyk, and Terrence Bud Crawford, right? No matter what order you have him in, whether you have it in Bud, Usyk, and Inoue, or Bud, Inoue, Usyk, or Inoue, Usyk, Bud, whatever it is, they all are undefeated, and undisputed in 2 weight classes. So that's good, right? But I was like, man, so Naoya Inoue, he was the main event this weekend, or yesterday on Sunday, right? And we were like, man, that card was good. But then I went to thinking, I was like, hold on. First off, I already said this. We got to give a lot of credit to Cardenas, because Cardenas, he made the fight, and he even dropped Inoue, brought a lot of intrigue. We weren't expecting that, right? So Ramon Cardenas definitely came to fight. And so I want to give him all his credit that he deserves, but we already did that too. But I also want to give Rafael Espinosa credit. And I was like, dang. If I'm giving Espinosa credit, I also want to give his opponent Edward Vasquez credit. Then I said, dang, hold on. Then I go back to the Saturday card, and I'm like, I like Canelo, right? But I was disappointed in my boy Cinnamon for not being able to cut off the ring. I was like, dang, that was kind of lackluster. But I thought about who was also on the card, and I was like, Efe Jogba Bakoli, that was cool. But I was like, man, I was impressed by Jaime Munguia, even though he didn't knock him out. I was like, that was a pretty entertaining fight. Then I said, hold on, Jaime Munguia, Naoya Inoue, Rafael Espinosa. So the card on Sunday, Jaime Munguia. And then I thought on Friday, I was like, man, who was the best performance on Friday? That, as much as I don't like Teofimo, I said that he had the best performance, even with the Rolly knocking down Ryan Garcia. So shout out to Rolly Romero. He represents PBC. But I was like, dang, hold on. Teofimo's on. What does Teofimo have in common with Naoya Inoue? Because I was like, man, Teofimo, he definitely had the best performance, even though Barbosa, he didn't fight with any urgency. I'm not saying Teofimo's performance was superb, but I thought that he outperformed everybody else, right, on his card on Friday. And I was like, dang, what does Teofimo have in common with Jaime Munguia on the Saturday card? And what do they both have in common with the Sunday card? And that's the fact that they're all on Top Rank. Top Rank fighters held it down this weekend, man. I'm not going to lie to you, man. Top Rank really held it down. And you know me, man, I'm not really a big Bob Arum guy. I feel like he be capping. But, man, they really held it down this weekend. And I got to say, Rolly Romero, on behalf of PBC, he held it down as well. But it was a top-ranked party, man. The top-ranked card on Sunday was great. And then, in a way, he did his thing with Cardenas. Cardenas is a PBC, not PBC fighter, excuse me, pro box fighter. But it was still a top-ranked card, man. And I was like, man, that's not really often where I could say that, I'm impressed by. I'm really happy with just Bob Arum in general in Top Rank. So shout out to them, man. Shout out to all the Top Rank fighters. And speaking on Bob Arum, I wanted to kind of go over what he was talking about. I remember I saw this interview on Saturday, I believe it was, and I want to just go over it together because I thought it was pretty interesting. And I feel like I agree with the majority of what Bob Arum says in there. And that's very rare, but Bob Arum was keeping it I mean, he threw a little slick little jabs in there, you know, overstepped in my opinion, but he also said some truth. But speaking of another, before we get to that video, because that's kind of long, I also want to show y'all this with Bruce Shushu Carrington. Shout out to my guy Oster in the building, man, big member in the building. Shout out to my guy Oster, man. What's popping with you, man? Yes, sir. He said, anyway, it's still probably pound for pound #1, but I think chaotic fighters like Nick Ball could beat him. What's up, DN7? My guy, what's good? No, I definitely don't think, anyways, pound for pound #1. I mean, to his own admission, he said that he doesn't think this win will get him #1. He said that he doesn't think he's #1, and that's okay. We don't have to agree with him. You know, just because he doesn't think he's #1 right now doesn't mean that he's not. You know, you can still think he is, but I don't think he's #1. He said that he doesn't think that beating Cardenas would put him at #1, but he thinks that he's getting back there after he fights his September fight, which would be Mjak Madali, if good Lord willing, and maybe Nick Ball and maybe Nakatani. He said that he thinks that would put him back in #1 position, but I don't think he's #1 at all, not with these opponents. Shout out to my guy James Daly in the building. He said Canelo Skull set a 40-year record for least amount of punches. Yeah, I already know that. Yep. I definitely know that. You know, that's a dubious. I definitely know that dubious record. We talked about that a little bit. Yeah, man. So let's talk about another top-ranked fighter, like I was speaking on, and that's Shushu Carrington, man. He's a top-ranked fighter. He had this to say in regards to, you know, Naoya Inoue and Espinosa. Let's check it out. Again, this is Bruce Shushu Carrington speaking with Sean Zittel. Let's check it out.
In his future, but you know, if he decides to move up to 126, I'm here, man.
So he's talking about if he decides to move to 126, that he's referring to is Naoya Inoue. So let's keep it going.
It can happen. Let's make the best fights happen.
Well, he seems to have laid out.
First of all, before we even go any further, shout out to Shushu Carrington, man. I wish him the best. I wish the young man the best. But there's nothing about that being the best fight. That might be his best opponent, but that's not the best fight. I'm a firm believer in progression and a process, right? I think he has to move forward progressively, and going from, there's nothing progressive. Well, I mean, it's progressive because you get some money and there is some stuff that, and you get a boost of popularity. But I'm talking about, like, as far as his progress goes, he didn't do anything to deserve the Naoya Inoue fight, in my personal opinion. I mean, he's not even a champion in his own division yet. So how can you demand, not saying that he's demanding, I'm just saying, but how can you demand a guy who's an undisputed champion in the weight class below? Now, if he comes up, I mean, it makes sense, because if he comes up and he doesn't want to fight a title holder immediately, then you could fight a contender like Shushu, yeah. But at the same time, even if Inoue moves up, I don't think that's the best fighting the best. I think Inoue fighting one of the champions would be the best fighting the best, you know. And unfortunately, or fortunately, Shushu Carrington right now is not the champion. So, but I can't get mad at the young man for wanting to fight Naoya Inoue. You know what I'm saying? That's potentially the biggest bag in his division, near or around his division, or in his division.
About the timeline. Nakatani would be May next year.
I want to fight Nakatani, man.
Huh? You don't want him to fight Nakatani?
No.
Did you hear what he just said? He said, I don't want him to fight Nakatani, man. Hey, bro. Hey, you know what I be saying, man. Big Junto. I think Junto beats everybody. He's at 118-pound division. I think Junto Nakatani beats everybody from 115 to 122. I personally do. I think he beats Naoya Inoue, Bam Rodriguez, everybody in his division. You know, Ryosuke Nishida, Yoshiki Takei, and Seiya Sasumi. That's my personal opinion. I've never heard somebody else share that same sentiment, man. This is what Shushu Carrington says in regards to Naoya Inoue and Nakatani.
Nakatani, man.
Huh? You don't want him to fight Nakatani?
No.
Why, you think Nakatani's going to knock him
I
off?
feel like Nakatani is a really good fighter. He has a good chance of, like...
Come on now. I'm not saying that this means he's right. He did say he has a good chance, but I told you, I've always thought Nakatani would beat Naoya Inoue, and I don't think that's going to change at any time soon, man. My opinion still stands. I think Nakatani beats Naoya Inoue, man. I think Nakatani is I think, like I said, if Naoya Inoue is a monster, Junto Nakatani is a monster slayer, man. And I just thought this was funny in this interview that dropped where Shushu Carrington talking about you don't want him to fight Nakatani because he think Nakatani has a good chance of beating him. And I share that same sentiment, man. I just thought that was funny.
He's younger.
Doing something, man. I want him to come up so I could, you know, the longer I feel like he stays away from, you know, from coming up to 126, and for me to have my chance, to, you know, the sooner things might happen.
Now, this part I just don't really agree with, man. Like I say, and this is no disrespect to Shushu Carrington, but I got to keep it honest, man. I don't think Naoya Inoue is looking at 126 and thinking about Shushu Carrington. Now, maybe he is because he wants to tap into the American market, but that'd be the only reason. Like, at this point, he'll be used as a pawn. Like, I'm not sure who Shushu beats at 126 as a champion. Do I think he beats Espinosa? No, but that's the easiest fight to facilitate because they're both on the same promotional company, right? Top rank under Bob Arum. Do I think that he beats Angelo Leo? I think that's a pretty good fight. Do I think he beats Stephen Fulton? I think Fulton beats Shushu. Do I think he beats, who's the other guy? Nick Ball. I think that's his best chance because I personally believe that Nick Ball, relative to the other champions, is the weakest link. Not that he's weak, but he's the weakest link. And I feel like if he's not able to use his dirty tactics, I think he'll have a hard time with a lot of people. But let's keep it going.
And look, he's gotten dropped in this fight, and then the fight not too long with Neri. You know, the time is ticking now. Time is ticking. So
basically, what Bruce Shushu carried to say that he thinks time is ticking as far as Inoue being in trouble because he got dropped with Neri, then he just got dropped by Ramon Cardenas. Ramon Cardenas, relatively unknown. Louis Neri got knocked out by Brandon Figueroa before Naoya Inoue fought him. So these are things that you have to kind of notice, man. You know, and it's dope that he's recovering and beating them, but these aren't top guys. They're just not. So, I mean, you can lie to yourself if you want to, but they're not top guys. Not saying that you can only get dropped by top guys. Like I said, there's always a glass half full approach, the optimistic approach. The optimistic approach is that he's getting dropped, but he's recovering and stopping these guys. But I don't even think it's pessimistic. The truth of the matter is that he's getting dropped by guys that probably shouldn't be able to drop him. And if somebody like Nakatani drops him, I think Nakatani will put him away. I don't think that he'll be able to recover. But so far, so good.
For a fighter that relies a lot on athleticism,
yeah,
too, right?
Definitely, man. You know, so I just want my opportunity, bro. I just want my shot.
Do you think you could make the weight? Let's say.
So basically, you could go watch the rest of it yourself, man. He basically says that he just wants a shot with Naoya Inoue, and then they ask him about Espinosa. He said that he wants to fight Espinosa. Like I said, I don't know what's holding up the Espinosa fight, but to me, that fight is the easiest one to be made. I don't know if it's Shushu's end that's holding it up. I don't know if it's Espinosa's end that's holding it up. According to Shushu, he said that he's been trying to fight Espinosa. Espinosa hasn't been responding. I don't know, man. You know, so but at the end of the day, no disrespect to Shushu, I don't think he beats either one of them. You know, but I do think that it would behoove him to get a belt because that would help him gain the leverage that he needs in order to have these fights, right? You know, but I just don't see him being like I said, the last guy he fought, Enrique Vivas, sorry. Shushu carried and fought Enrique Vivas, and he was the first person to stop the veteran. That was a good win. Don't get me wrong, that was a good win. But the other guy, when he fought Dana Kuwa, was okay. I mean, it was another guy that he was supposed to look good against. I was on the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson card, if I'm not mistaken, undercard. And then he fought before that with Suleiman Sagawa. That was the first top 10 guy he fought. He didn't look good, you know, his first step up to competition. Some people had him losing. You know, I thought it was a decent fight. I thought it could have went either way. He got the nod. It's cool. But there was nothing about his performances, even the one that he looked good and stopped Enrique Vivas, that makes me believe that he can hang with a guy like Espinosa or Naoya Inoue. But it is what it is, man. We'll see. But I do want to go to, like I said, to the top rank video with Bob Arum. And I don't know if I can show the whole video. I kind of want to show the whole video. It is Fight Hub. I think I can, but I don't really like to show the whole videos because I don't want to get copyrighted. Shout out to my guy Mike in the building, man. It was good, Mike. He said, "What's your opinion on Makito Nakano?" I went, "Oh no, you're trying to change the topic. We're not changing the topic right now." So yeah, we're gonna check it out and see what's going on. Let's see what's going on. Hopefully we don't get a copyright, but if we do,
Garcia,
you know, has been off
the whole year, and you know, this is a lack of real planning. He should have had a tune-up fight first, and then go into a fight with a guy like Romero. But
okay, so this is probably the only part. So when I said I agree with almost everything Bob Arum says, which is really rare, you know. This is probably the only part I lied. This is probably the only part I disagree with. He's basically saying that Ryan Garcia having a year off was a problem, which is why he didn't look that good. Now, I don't have a problem with that because he's going to recover and he's going to explain. But when he first said that, I was like, come on, Bob. You know, Badu Jack, who was also on the card this weekend, he was on the Saturday card, Canelo's card. He's 41 years old. And he hasn't fought since 2023. So he's coming off a 2-year layoff and he's 41. And he looked fine. Ryan Garcia is 20-something years old, 25 or 26. He can handle a year layoff. A lot of these guys don't fight more than once a year anyway. Ryan Garcia fights twice a year at most. The year layoff, I'm not hearing that. However, he did also speak on it, the year layoff, in regards to Devin Haney. Let's listen.
you know, these fighters and the promoters get turned by the money. and they don't make really good decisions.
He said it's the money
A
grab.
good decision would have been to take a tune-up fight, and then, then you move to a Romero or even a Haney or so forth. You don't go right in after a year. Look at Haney. Haney looked terrible.
He said Haney looked terrible. Nah, but let him keep going.
Ramirez, because he hadn't fought in a year.
You see? And he said Haney looked terrible because he hasn't fought in a year. And that made me respect Bob Arum right here, because I was like, okay, you're going to really say that Haney looked terrible and you're going to give Ryan an excuse for losing? At least Devin Haney won. But then he said that, hey, man, Haney needed a tune-up too. He thinks they both needed tune-ups. I don't really believe that, man. I think that, especially not for Ryan Garcia. I might, maybe in regards to Devin Haney, if he would have got a tune-up against an easier fighter as opposed to Ramirez, then he could have got a little bit more confidence. So I'm not saying that it would not have helped. Tune-ups usually always help. But at the same time, sometimes you're buying your time. It's like you're buying your time. And I feel like with Haney fighting Ramirez stylistically, he should be able to beat him. But hey, Ramirez is a decent puncher. I think he has like a 62% KO ratio, or he did before going into the Devin Haney fight. So he's not a small puncher. He's not a pillow-fisted guy, but he's not some huge one-punch knockout artist. So I do think that it would have been nice for him to get a tune-up to kind of get back acclimated to the weight, especially when he was coming off of getting beat down, even though it was due to PEDs and stuff. At least he would get some confidence about him. But the Ryan Garcia one, like, he was just suspended. You could have been active. You could have been training just like Badu Jack was. You don't need to be fighting to be training and stay in shape. Of course, if you're motivated, if you have a goal, and you're getting a fight, you're going to be even more motivated to train and stuff like that. But there's plenty of fighters that train year round. Look at Terrence Crawford. He fights once a year. If Terrence Crawford goes in there and loses to Canelo, nobody's going to say, oh, it's because Terrence Crawford only fights once a year. They're not going to afford him that excuse. So I don't really want to hear about, like, if I'm not giving Devin Haney any extra provisions or anything like that, or giving him any extra length, any extra room to play with. What I am saying is that his confidence was shaken. He's the one that had to, bounce back from the weak chin or the damaged chin or the damaged ego, whatever it is. Ryan Garcia didn't really have any problems. I mean, his biggest problem was the fact that he could no longer be on the PEDs. So I'm not really buying it, but at least I got to give Bob Arum credit for at least at a minimum extending the courtesy to both fighters and saying, hey, man, it's a year. They both needed a little tune-up.
Did he seem to be gun shy? Did he seem to be worried about taking another big shot?
Who's that?
David Haney, with the way that he was moving around the ring.
Absolutely. You see that? I mean, I don't know how he scored, because it's hard to tell. But, who's going to want to see Haney fight if he fights that way?
Now that I agree with when he's talking about who's want to see Haney fight. Like, all the other criticism to me is kind of unwarranted and unfair. Devin Haney definitely won. You see, Bob Arum didn't say that he didn't win, but he's like, who wants to see that type of fighting again? And that part I don't disagree with. I don't mind anybody saying that they're bored with the fight. It is what it is, man. You can't tell somebody how to enjoy the fight. But all this extra nonsense, some people acted like Devin Haney lost. Like, I saw somebody say, some article, and some people saying that, oh, Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia fumbled the bag. How did Devin Haney fumble the bag? Devin Haney won. Ryan Garcia fumbled the bag. Because if Devin Haney looked bad and Ryan Garcia would have won, people would have been saying, oh, yeah, I can't wait to see them fight again because Ryan Garcia is going to knock him out for sure. But because Ryan Garcia lost, they somehow trying to place Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia in the same boat. No, Devin Haney might have looked bad, but he still won. Ryan Garcia looked bad and he lost. Those are two different things, man. So let's not conflate the two, man. Let's keep it going, man.
You want to see the rematch? After what? Yeah.
What do you think about Teofimo Lopez? His performance?
He did okay. I mean, he did okay. But he knew he was in with Barboza, who can't break an egg.
He said Barboza can't break an egg. You know, Barboza was a former top-ranked fighter. Yo, what's up, James? Barboza's a former top-ranked fighter. So you got to understand that there's some type of rift there, before you went to Golden Boy. So it's just funny because in this whole interview, he's talking about how Barboza can't break an egg. He says that repeatedly, right? But he does say Teofimo did do his thing, and he goes on to talk about like fighters taking the money, going for the money, as opposed to prioritizing their longevity, not only their longevity, but also what's their best career move for them, as opposed to getting a lot of money now and potentially sacrificing the rest of your career, you know? So I do think that what Bob Arum says in this video is very important, but at the same time too, I'm not sure if that's applicable to guys like Haney, Ryan Garcia, and Teofimo, because even though they're younger, they are pretty much who they are in their careers. I think personally, you know, I do think off the performances on Saturday that Devin Haney probably has a lot more that he can do, but Ryan Garcia, I don't think he's changing. Teofimo, you already know he's pretty much up and down. So it's up to Devin Haney if he's gonna stay like this and fight and run around the ring like that. We'll see. But if he gets back to form where he looks solid, then I think people will want to see him again. But people aren't going to really want to see him based off the performance he did with Ramirez, if that's something that he's going to repeat. But we don't know, man. This is the first fight back, like he said about the Ryan Garcia layoff and stuff like that. And he still won. But we don't know if he just did that game plan, implemented that game plan for Ramirez specifically. Maybe if it was somebody else who'd have fought differently. I don't know.
Yeah. Barboza's fought so many fights for us. I don't think he's had one knockout, you know. So Teofimo could show his whole arsenal.
Hey, shout out to Bob Arum, man. This man's like, what, 90 something? And he's still out here analyzing the fight, breaking it down, making it sound good. You know, got his faculties about him, man. You got to respect it, man.
When I go back to Ryan Garcia really quickly, you talked about it's just bad matchmaking. Is a lot of this pro fight game stuff just as important for the matchmaker to be just as astute at his job as it is the fighter?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, you know, you can't blame, without knowing the background, you can't blame anybody, because it may very well be that the people at Golden Boy were telling Garcia, don't go into a fight like that.
Oh, Lord. All right, you could go watch the rest on your own, but basically, we just got to add. But basically, you saying like, yeah, man, the matchmaking is important. He said that maybe people in Ryan Garcia's camp or Golden Boy promotions were trying to advise Ryan Garcia not to go straight into a Rolly Romero fight. He's saying that I don't know if they told him not to. I don't think they told him not to. I think that, no disrespect, but I don't think Golden Boy thought there was any way, shape, or form, and there was any chance of hell or any way, shape, or form, no matter how good or bad Ryan Garcia was looking, that Rolly Romero would beat him, and that was just a miscalculation, you know. But maybe Bob Arum is right. Maybe they advised Ryan Garcia to take a tune-up instead of go for the big turkey bag. But he was like, hey, man, this money is good for turkey out of shake, so I'm going. You know, and the reason why I say that Bob Arum took this stance is because you remember when Martin Bacoli and Jared B. Baby Anderson were supposed to fight, right? Jared B. Baby Anderson, I said Bacoli was going to win, you know, and sure enough, Bacoli knocked him out. But the story was that Bob Arum and Top Rank did not want Jared B. Baby Anderson to fight Martin Bacoli. In fact, they advised him not to. His matchmaker said, no, this is not a good fight. You're not ready for it right now. And Jared Anderson went against the grain. He wanted the money because it was a multi-million-dollar payday, and he got an L. You know, has a blemish on his record now. Is it worth it? We got to ask Jared Anderson. But according to Bob Arum, he doesn't think it's worth it. So he's basically saying that he doesn't think that Ryan Garcia should have fought Rolly Romero coming off of a layoff, and he also doesn't think Devin Haney should have fought Jose Carlos Ramirez coming off his situation and his layoff as well. I'm somewhere in between. Like, I get it, you know, because like, look at Teofimo Lopez, right? Teofimo Lopez, after he had a terrible performance against Jermaine Ortiz, which he won, he still was advised by Top Rank, I'm assuming, to go take a tune-up against Steve Claggett. He looked bad in that as well. Well, he didn't look impressive, but even coming off of a bad win, he still took a tune-up, right? So I do think that tune-ups are important, just to make sure that you are still the same person, answer some questions that you may have for yourself, especially if you're coming off like a loss or what was perceived as a loss, or getting beat up or getting knocked down for the first time in your career. Then I do think you should answer questions, but at the same time, simultaneously, you know, that was before Turkey was here. Now Turkey is here. Turkey is trying to make sure, he's trying to build a culture, reshape the culture, and make people less worried about their undefeated record and make it more advantageous for them to just fight and fight the best. So we'll see how it goes. You know, part of it could be that Bob Arum is stuck in his old ways, pun intended, because he's old, but also in his old ways, and preserving the O's for the mega fights. But part of it could be that he's absolutely right too, and he's been working with boxing this whole time, and he knows the psyche of fighters. So I don't know, man. It's like a little combination of both. But shout out to Bob Arum, man. I thought this was a pretty good interview, and he did his thing, man. Shout out to my guy Mike Mazik, man, dropping the $5 on the Cash App, man. I really appreciate that, bro. Show us some love for your boy, keeping us going and growing. Shout out to my brother, man. Yes, sir. Dropping that bread. Hold on, let me show it. Hold on now. It's not loading up. Shout out to my guy Mike Mazik dropping the $5 on the Cash App, man. He said, for the build. Yes, sir, for the build. Dropping that bread, that cheese, that butter.
These biscuits.
Man, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it, bro. Always holding it down for me. You know what I'm saying? Helping us keep going and growing. He said, yo, my guy Omari in the building. Big member in the building. He said, James says, surely that awful crowd set up a city waiting in cars affected the fighters at Times Square a bit. I ain't making excuses though. Yeah, I don't doubt that, yeah, anything that's different is gonna be. I don't know if you watch basketball, right, James, but this is what I compare it to. It's like the bubble. When people try to discredit or to be dismissive of the people that won the champion in the bubble, right? The championship, or what was that, LeBron and the Lakers, right? They say, oh, that one didn't count. What you mean it didn't count? Why didn't it count? It's not like LeBron wasn't in the bubble and all the other teams were. It wasn't like the Heat and the Bulls and the Celtics were not in the bubble, or they were in the bubble and the Lakers weren't. No, they were all under the same circumstances. They were all exposed to the same situation, so somebody has to come out a winner. And so it'll be different if Ryan Garcia was in that situation, was in that environment, and then Devin Haney wasn't, or Jose Carlos Ramirez was in that environment and then Rolly Romero wasn't, but they were all in the same environment. So I have no doubt, like you said, I agree with that. Surely it probably messed up that what they're accustomed to, but at the same time, they're all exposed to it and they're fighting each other. So I don't see what the problem is. If as long as we're all fighting and we're all fighting in 90-degree weather, we're all hot in this thing. You know what I'm saying? So as long as they're all exposed to the same circumstances, then I don't see the problem. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, of course it's going to be different. And anything's different than your normal routine, I think it will throw you off. So I do agree with you. I just, like you said, I just don't think it makes a difference, because they're all exposed to the same circumstances. What up, Slim Reaper? But yeah, man. So I just think that that interview was pretty good with Bob Arum, man. He kept it fair, and he did a lot of talking in regards to it. I mean, we could finish it, but it's a 9-minute video, man, and I'm not sure if I can play the whole thing, and I don't want to. I think we can, man. Let's do it. Why not? Let's do it, man. Let's do a little watch along. Why not?
A tune-up fight, get yourself back in the ring and so forth. I mean, anybody who knows boxing would tell Garcia that's what he should do. But I guess the money that Turkey put up was so big that they decided to go for the money. But that doesn't make any sense.
Said go for the money, but it doesn't make any sense. You're going for the dollars, but it doesn't make any sense. You feel me? You see what he did? Try to play on the words there, but it doesn't make this type of sense, even if it makes the money sense. You know what I'm saying? But what he's saying is that, like, you got to make sure that you keep your wits about you. You got to use your brain, use your sense, your SENSE sense, even if it comes to the point where you have to leave a little CENTS sense on the table. It's not all about money if you talk about the longevity of your career. But once again, like I said, this could be considered the old school mentality, because Turk is trying to revolutionize the sport as far as how we react to losses and fighters with losses. He's basically trying to make it okay for fighters to have losses, which ideally for us, I think that'd be good as an observer and for the fighters. They don't have to feel like they have to have some type of a pristine record or have a perfect record, and they can still be marketable and still be considered high quality opponents. But until that finally makes a turnaround, then I think that people with this mentality is gonna probably dictate the movements of a lot of fighters. And I don't think that you should completely abandon this philosophy and embrace the other one, because you just never know how long this stuff is gonna last. But I do think the more we can get these fighters fighting, the better. But at the same times too, I agree with Bob Arum. It's like, man, you want to be careful how you move as well, because Once you take an L, forget the money and forget the fans' reaction to your L. Some people don't bounce back from L's at all. You know what I'm saying? Because their psyche might be messed up.
And we saw this before last summer with Big Baby, kind of a similar thing. Is this money that's being thrown at these fighters to the detriment of their careers, and they're not realizing
it could be
yet?
to the detriment of the career, because the fighters look at the money.
He said, "I can see your nose hairs. Back up, Unc." Why you all in his nose, man? Or you talking about my nose? I don't know who knows you talking about.
And that's all they care about, and they don't realize that maybe you don't take a fight that you shouldn't take. I mean, Big Baby was so unprepared for Bacoli that it was a joke. We told him, we were against the fight. Our matchmakers were against the fight. But, this was a multi-million-dollar purse, and Big Baby insisted on taking it, and Bacoli knocked him out.
So he said, "Hey, how much money you want to put your chin on the line for?" You know what I'm saying? So he said, "How much money?" Hey, so I'm talking about Gramps. I figured you were talking about it. Shout out to my guy Omari, man. Hopefully everything's good with you too, man, from last night and stuff. But yeah, he said basically, "Hey man, we tried to tell him not to take the money, not to take the fight, because you're not ready for Bacoli. It doesn't mean that you won't ever be ready for Bacoli, but at this moment, it's ill-advised that he took the fight to take the money, and he got paid handsomely, but he got beat up handsomely as well. You know what I'm saying? Or beat up ugly, I should say. So that's a fight that we predicted. But like I said, man, it's a combination of both, man. Hey, it was a good night of boxing for me, but yeah, Jared Anderson, man, Bacoli made quick work of him.
So sometimes you can't blame the matchmakers or promoters. Sometimes it's the fighter who's blinded with the money.
And the atmosphere, I just wanted to get you to touch on, we just finished watching the whole program. The atmosphere just didn't seem like the traditional atmosphere.
Well, it wasn't the traditional atmosphere. It doesn't mean...
And this is what James is talking about, right? They're talking about the atmosphere now. He said it wasn't the traditional atmosphere, but listen to how he follows up, though.
The atmosphere just didn't seem like the traditional atmosphere.
Well, it wasn't the traditional atmosphere. It doesn't mean it was bad. It was sort of pretty interesting having the fight in Times Square coming off the way it did. But it's not the same atmosphere as enclosed arena. It just isn't.
And see, he's basically kind of saying what I'm saying. He's like, yeah, of course it's not the same atmosphere, but he's not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just different. And when things are different, it's going to make you react or respond maybe not how you are accustomed to doing. But that's okay, though. You know what? They probably should have trained that way. You see where Canelo was. Canelo didn't just go to Riyadh for his fight. He'd been there for about 3 weeks before his fight started. You know why he did that? So he could become acclimated with the time zone, acclimated with the air, acclimated with the customs, acclimated with whatever he had to become familiar, whatever he had to establish a familiarity with in order to perform at his best. He had to familiarize himself with the situation. So how many of these fighters do you think actually boxed outside just to kind of simulate or emulate the environment that they're going to fight in? Probably not too many, because they seem like they're, more focused on being young and dumb than they are about being successful in the ring. Teofimo looked good enough, so probably he did. Devin Haney, man, he had a lot of energy. Also, all the things that we didn't like about him running, his endurance was crazy. Same with William Skull. So apparently they trained, but Devin Haney was in where was he at? Big Bear and stuff like that. So I don't really think the environment matters too much, but it is something to note that is different. But I don't think it changed the outcome for the fight.
So just last thoughts about Devin Haney. Where does he go from here?
I don't know where he goes from here. He's certainly fighting the way he did tonight. I mean, boxing fans take anything, but who the hell wants to see him fight? I mean, that really was a terrible performance.
So out of the performance of everybody that you saw tonight, who do you think is the best fighter at this point in their career out of everyone we just witnessed?
Well, I think Teofimo. No real medals on him. He didn't fight a great fight, and he was in with Barboza, who, again, as I said, can't break an egg.
So this is what I said, too. I was like, man, shout out to Teofimo. He did good relative to the other fighters, but I also said that his performance wasn't fantastic. It was just looked better because of who was on there after him. You know, Devin Haney and Ramirez looked so bad, it made you appreciate Teofimo's performance against Barbosa a little more. Ryan Garcia and Rolly, you know, Ryan looked so bad that it made you appreciate, outside of the knockdown, it looked so bad that it made you appreciate Teofimo's performance. And then William Scola and Canelo looked so bad, made you appreciate the Teofimo performance. But I want to say that Teofimo looked spectacular, but he did look the best to me outside of the Sunday card. And that may not be saying much, but it is what it is.
So he should have been more aggressive. But at least you saw his whole arsenal, you know?
Yeah,
he wasn't afraid to take a punch.
Where does Teofimo go from here?
I think he's Teofimo's for the money, and you can't blame him. So
payday.
his next fight will be the biggest money fight for him, which is probably Ennis.
When I heard that, I was like, oh, hold on now. So you know that Turkey was talking about trying to get Teofimo versus Boots Ennis. You know, obviously the WBA was trying to make an effort to seemingly give Boots 2 mandatories. You know, he's going to try to force him to consolidate the belts, but that was under when they were under the impression that Ryan Garcia would win. And now, obviously, famously, Rolly Romero won, so I don't think that they're going to be pursuing that belt consolidation as much now, given these circumstances. But Boots does have his Shakram Giyashov mandatory that he inherited once he won the WBA from Amantas Stanionis. Because remember, Shakram Giyashov was the WBA mandatory for Amantas Stanionis. And then when they had their unification and Shakram was paid step-aside money, now Boots naturally inherits that mandatory, so he has to fight him next. However, I'm not sure what's going to happen because Turkey Al-Sheikh, who can make things shake, you know what I'm saying? He's been saying that he wants Teofimo versus Boots in the scenario that they both win, and they both won. So we'll see if we'll get that matchup. But also, too, does that mean Shakram's going to get paid off more money? Because I don't think Boots wants to give up that belt. I mean, he just won it, right? So maybe Shakram will take some step-aside money for the Boots and Teofimo fight to be facilitated. Or maybe Teo might go in a whole nother direction. You never know. We'll see.
Is that a fight you're looking forward to make?
Well, you know, it's Teofimo wants the money. And if they want the money, you don't hold them back. You know, they're adults, and they can make a decision. And if the decision that he makes is to go into an Ennis fight, that's his decision, and everybody goes along with him. And that's the way it is.
Bro, I ain't gonna lie, bro. This is like, I don't know what Bob Bear was doing, but this whole interview was good. Like I said, I was watching. I just went to thinking about it. I was like, man, let me watch it again, man. And he's been preaching this whole thing. Like, Bob, this is one of the most, you know, because Bob be capping, man. And all promoters be capping. You know, Bob for Top Rank, Oscar for Golden Boy, Al Heyman for, well, I guess we don't see Al Heyman that much, but, you know, Leonard Ellaby for PBC, Eddie Hearn for Matchroom, Ben Shalom for Boxer, Frank Warren for Queensberry. They all be capping a bit. But this is one of the most genuine, authentic interviews I've seen from Bob in a while, in my personal opinion.
How do you feel about his chances versus Jaron Ennis?
I think he's very much an underdog. But that's why they do the fights.
He said he thinks that Teofimo is very much an underdog against Boots. He said he ain't got no chance.
And then Brian Norman, he's obviously signed with Top Rank. Is that the fight you would prefer to make?
Well, Brian Norman has a tough fight with the Japanese fighter.
You talking about, so when he said Brian Norman, that's the other champion that's also with Top Rank at 147, the WBO champion, Brian Norman Jr. He is supposedly going to Japan to fight Jin Sasaki, a top-rated contender there. So that's who he's referring to as a Japanese fighter, Jin Sasaki, out of Japan.
In June in Tokyo. Because Honda, who we do a lot of business with, tells me that he gives the Japanese guy a big chance to win the fight. So we'll have to see. So, you know, again, instead of looking ahead with Brian Norman, look at what's going to be in front of him in Tokyo.
We're Phoenix Energy, a family-owned oil company.
So he's saying that Brian Norman, man, he has some he has
hope
Jin
that he's-
Sasaki ahead of him, so he's saying that he shouldn't even look ahead to anybody else because Ohashi. Did he say Ohashi? I think he said no. He said Honda. Excuse me. He said Honda in Japan. He's a Japanese promoter and manager and stuff like that. He said that he thinks Jin Sasaki has a good chance to win a title, you know, and thinks maybe he could beat Brian Norman. And I think that Jin Sasaki would be a very formidable opponent as well. Only thing about Jin Sasaki, he doesn't have great defense. He's like, to me, he reminds me of Jaime Munguia. You know, I like Jaime Munguia, but I always say Jaime Munguia blocks with his face. So I'm excited for this fight. I think Brian Norman Jr. is going to win, but he can't overlook Jin Sasaki, man. Jin Sasaki's on like an 8 or 9 win streak, 8 or 9 fight win streak, and he only had one loss, and that one loss came to Andy Hiroka at 140. You know, Andy Hiroka's a good top contender at 140. But now, what's the name? Jin Sasaki's at 147 now, so you know, and that's his only blemish. So we'll see how it goes. Man, I think it's a tough fight, but I got Brian Norman winning.
He's able to pull it out.
So Lopez Norman wouldn't be likely. Would you think it would be more Lopez Ennis at this point?
Well, again, I'm not going to. I don't think Brian Norman should even talk or consider a fight with Lopez or anybody else until he fights and beats the Japanese fighter. Because, I mean, otherwise it's just stupid. He's not going to do his best when he fights over in Tokyo. Let him win that fight, and then there's plenty of time after the fight to talk to Brian and to see what he wants to do next. And the matchmakers will have some advice for him, and he'll listen to the advice, and he may not follow the advice, but he'll listen to the advice. I think he's a very, very good fighter. Maybe it's a little too early to tell, but again, let's see how he does in Tokyo.
Does TF?
Man, I agree with that with Brian Norman. I told people this, man. I know we want to see Brian Norman to fight Boots because I think people think that's the only fight that's available in welterweight division. But I do want to see unification. You know me, I love unification. But once I heard that but when I saw Jin Sasaki pull up to Brian Norman's last fight against Derek Cuevas and he issued him a challenge, I was like, bro, you should probably take this fight. It will behoove you and your career and your profile to take this fight, because now you could go to another market and expose yourself to them. And then you could potentially pick up some Japanese fans, and you know, you should do that everywhere. If you could travel and defend your title and it works for you and it could be fruitful for you, then you know, not only from a monetary standpoint, but also from a boxing fan standpoint. And I think that'd be dope if Brian Norman could go over there, beat Jin Sasaki. Then if he does that convincingly, or even beats him at all, he'll gain more fans. And I think that'll give him more leverage when it comes to these other unification fights, whether it's Boots Ennis or if it's Mario Barrios or whoever, man. That's just common sense. You know, you got to build leverage. And the way you can do that through merit is by beating people, especially if you could beat people abroad as well.
Fimo Lopez beat the fighters you saw tonight. Does he beat Haney? Does he beat Ryan Garcia?
Does he
beat Rolly?
They're not. I mean, those aren't really competitive fights for Teofimo.
Let me ask you though.
That part I thought was funny. Bob Arum literally just said that. He asked him, "Oh, does Teofimo beat Devin Haney, Rolly Romero, and Ryan Garcia?" He just said, "Hey, man, those fights aren't even competitive for Teofimo." And if we're judging off of this past weekend, I might not have felt that way last year. You know what I'm saying? Or 13, 14 months ago, before the incident happened with Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. I may not have felt that way, but man, based off of last night, I think Teofimo does mollywop Ryan Garcia. I do think Teofimo does get the best of Devin Haney. I do. And even Rolly Romero, you know, I think that's still a good fight. But, you know, of course, similar to what Rolly and Ryan, they had sparring stories, right? Sparring history. T.O. and Rolly had sparring history too. And we saw the Rolly one come into it came into the light, and it pretty much stayed the same way, right? With Rolly Romero actually doing the same thing essentially to Ryan Garcia in the ring that night as he did in sparring, minus the knockdowns and stuff like that. But the consensus is, and the rumors are, that he got the best of Ryan. And then also, be right back. All right, Omari. And then also, if it is true, considering that with Rolly Romero and Teofimo, well, then Bob might be slightly off, because according to the rumor reel again, even though it was a long time ago, when Teofimo and Rolly sparred, Rolly got the better of him.
Devin
what I
Haney
heard.
and Rolly. From what the guys that we just saw tonight, if Devin Haney and Rolly were to fight next, what happens then?
Well, that's it's an interesting fight. If Haney fights Rolly the way he fought Ramirez, he doesn't win. So again, I've seen Haney in a lot of fights. I never saw him fight this way. So again, based on fighting the way he did tonight against what Rolly showed fighting Garcia tonight, I would pick Rolly. But again, I don't think you're going to see Haney so bad as he looked tonight.
And I agree with that, man. Bro, I tell you, Bob was preaching, because I said that as well. I was like, bro, we don't know if Devin Haney's going to look like this all the time. And that's basically what Rob is saying. He's like, man, if Devin Haney looks how he looked tonight, he probably loses to Rolly. And I agree with that too. But who's to say that he would approach the Rolly fight like that? Who's to say that if he fights another opponent after this, Ryan Garcia is going to approach them the same way? What if he fights, I don't know, give me another 147-pounder? I don't know, Mario Barnes, is going to approach the fight the same way, or Jerome Boutinis? I don't know how he's going to approach it. But I will say this, though, just like Bob, and just like I said this morning on the morning show, that he did not build my confidence in him for me to believe that he's going to beat too many other people like that. However, he did give me a reason to be patient, because no matter how bad he looked, he dominated Jose Carlos Ramirez from a round count and from a point differential. Like I said, I scored it 11 rounds to 1. I haven't seen anybody say that Jose Carlos Ramirez should have won the fight. So if you do think that, good for you, but it just lets me know that you didn't score it. I score all my fights. So, while I do think that Devin Haney looked piss poor with his performance, we got to understand that I was still good enough to beat the former Olympian and former champion in Jose Carlos Ramirez, who was trained by the Hall of Fame trainer and current trainer of the year, Robert Garcia. You see what I'm saying? So you got to factor that in as well.
Do you think maybe it's time for Haney to seek help elsewhere as far as trainers go?
Well, I don't know. The father's a pretty intelligent guy, and he has people in his corner that could tell Devin, and Devin's an intelligent fighter. So when he looks at the tape, I think he'll recognize by himself that he has to change his style. I don't know what the hell he was running for 12 rounds. It wasn't in with King Kong, with Jose Ramirez sort of at the end of his career and more a businessman than a fighter.
He said, I don't know what the heck he was in there, what he was running from, bro. He wasn't in there with King Kong. He was in there with Jose Carlos Ramirez, a guy who's at the end of his career. He's more of a businessman making business decisions than he is a boxer. And I agree with that 1,000%. It's like, bro, I didn't even feel like Devin Haney had to fight like that. But what I did not like, I love Bob Arum's answers, but I did not like the interviewer, his questions. Like, you see, he was just trying to focus on, what Devin Haney needs to change up, what Devin Haney needs to do. Should he get rid of this trainer? How's Devin Haney gonna look? Bitch, what about Ryan Garcia? Ryan Garcia lost. That's the thing that I don't understand, man. It's like we have more questions for the guy who won than we do for the guy who lost. Devin Haney looked terrible, yes, but he looked terrible in a W. Ryan Garcia looked terrible. He got dropped, and he looked terrible in a loss. Did he ask him about Derek James and potentially changing trainers from him? Which Derek James might be fired anyway. He might be up out of there already. I'm talking about as we speak. They might have kicked that boy to the curb like this. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I just think it's just kind of silly, man, and it's worth talking about, man. Shout out to Bob Arum. I thought the interview was good. It came out like 2 days ago. Like I said, I revisited it again today because it just popped up on my recommended or something like that. But I do think that Bob Arum was spot on with his analysis and breakdown there, man. I don't feel like he put extra critiques on anybody that was just unheard of or uncalled for. I thought he called it basically how he saw it, man, and it is what it is, man. All his fighters won last weekend, man. Or this past weekend, man. You got Teofimo on Top Rank, Jaime McGee on Top Rank. Then you got Naoya Inoue, Rafael Espinosa all on Top Rank, of course. So, with that Top Rank card. So, man, I don't know. I just thought that interview was pretty interesting, man. And I want to say big up to Top Rank boxers, man. Top Rank boxers went crazy. Even though they was fighting on a Turk card, they went crazy, bro. They did their thing, man. If I'm not mistaken, the top ranked fighters were all undefeated this weekend. If I could be like, now maybe if there were some other fighters on the undercard that I or the prelims that I missed, but now as far as the co-mains and the main event fights and the guys that are popular, you know, top ranked didn't come out too bad. They came out pretty good, to be honest, man. So yeah, that was it for me, man. I'm about to go watch these NBA playoffs and go get me some food and chill, man. We be back on for the morning show. Good Lord willing, man. Shout out to Mike for dropping the $5 on the Cash App. Shout out to everybody that pull it up. You know what I'm saying? This was a little slow show. Like I said, it was late because it was storming like crazy, man, and it sounds like it's raining again. So I want to get off too because I don't want any mishaps to go down. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate y'all rocking as always. Don't forget to smack that like button if you haven't done so already. But more importantly, remember we can do anything without God. We're nothing. The doctor's out. Peace. I'm gonna catch you on the morning show. Good Lord willing. Go check out the videos we dropped as well, baby. From the hood to college, both worlds they had to meet. 6 degrees between us, so cold we're about to freeze. But we're Florida boys, hot takes, we bring the heat. We're moving the culture, the engineers to the streets.